Hello. On September 18th, thousands of Georgians began casting absentee ballots,
determined to lift their voices in the democratic process of electing our leaders for the next 2 years, the next 4 years. A few weeks later, more than 2 million Georgians declared their choices, heading to polling places for early votes. And then on November 6th, more than 1 million folks arrived in precincts around our beloved state, anxious and excited to express their patriotism through the fundamental act of voting. For these millions of Georgians, the act may have proven tedious and hard, but they had no doubts their votes would be counted. Certainly, there would be long lines and delays. Absolutely, a tired volunteer would mistype a name. And nature would not be ignored through rain or tornado warnings or chilly weather. We all understand the challenges and the complications. However, this year, more than 200 years into Georgia's democratic experiment, the state failed its voters. You see, despite a record high population in Georgia, more than 1 million citizens found their names stripped from the rolls by the Secretary of State, including a 92-year-old civil rights activist who had cast her ballot in the same neighborhood since 1968. Tens of thousands hung in limbo, rejected due to human error and a system of suppression that had already proven its bias. The remedy, they were told, was simply to show up. Only they, like thousands of others, found polling places shut down, understaffed, ill-equipped, or simply unable to serve its basic function for lack of a power cord. Students drove hours to hometowns to cast votes because mismanagement prevented absentee ballots from arriving on time. Parents stood in the fitful rain in 4-hour lines, watching as less fortunate voters had to abandon democracy in favor of keeping their jobs and collecting a paycheck. Eligible voters were denied ballots because poll workers didn't think they had enough paper to go around. Ballots were rejected by the handwriting police. Citizens tried to exercise their constitutional rights and were still denied the ability to elect their leaders. Under the watch of the now former Secretary of State, democracy failed Georgia. Georgians of every political party, every race, every region, again. You see, the incompetence and mismanagement we witnessed in this election had been on display months before in the Republican state legislative primary of Dan Gassaway. Counties, under the direction of the Secretary of State, issued flawed ballots, and not for the first time, and not just in that district. Only this time, the mistakes clearly altered the outcome. Representative Gassaway, a Republican in a heavily Republican district, had to go to court to force a fair fight. And therefore, on December 4th, tucked between the runoffs for Secretary of State and the Public Service Commission, for one community, there will be justice in the process. Win or lose, the people in his district will finally have a say. Many of the same Republicans cheered on Representative Gassaway when he filed his lawsuit. But the same ones have grumbled about the time we have taken to gain a remedy for fellow Georgians who faced a dizzying array of bad action, misinformation, and gut-wrenching hardship. But we are a mighty nation because embedded in our national experiment is the chance to fix what is broken, to call out what has faltered, and to demand fairness wherever it can be found. Which is why on election night, I declared that our fight to count every vote is not about me. It is about us. It is about the democracy that we share and our responsibility to preserve our way of life. Our democracy. Because voting is not a right for some.
It is a right for all. And it is not a privilege. I stand here today as witness to that truth. This election is about all of us, as is the resolution of this moment. I acknowledge that former Secretary of State Brian